Good day, everyone. Richard Cobrathwaite for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us for another program. Kind of a special program today. We're going to take a hard look at the Franklin County Industrial Development Corporation. 50 years old, a long history here in Franklin County, and I'll be interested to hear how many jobs have come into the county related to the efforts of the FCIDC. And happy to have three guests. Mark LaRoe, the chairman of the board of the Franklin County Industrial Development Corporation. Tim Smith, executive director, also happens to be the mayor of St. Albans. And Kevin Manahan, the vice chair of the Franklin County Industrial Development Corporation board. Nice to have you folks on hand.
Thanks for having us.
So how long have you been chairman, Mark, or how long have you been on the board?
Well, I was on the board since 1998,
Really?
but chairman, it was unfortunately when my mentor, Bill Chaffee, passed away, and I believe that was in September of 2016.
16, I think. Yeah.
Boy, talk about someone who I consider pretty much synonymous with FCIDC, Bill Chaffee, huge part of the success event.
Yeah.
Wow.
He served as chair for
Boy, many.
20
Wow.
25 years. I've lost
Wow.
track, but
Wow.
he was there for a long period of
That's
time.
right. And Tim, exec director, and again, I asked you, your predecessor was Tim Soul.
Right. So
Wow. And you've been exec director for how long?
I've been the director for, I started my 22nd year in
Wow.
March.
Wow.
I tell people that I got the job because the monogram on the bathroom towels were the same. TJS.
There you go.
So,
And Kevin, vice chair of the board, how long have you been hooked up with FCIDC?
I'm not sure exactly when I started, but Tim Soul was the executive director when I started. So if Tim's been here 22 years. It was.
Wow. Really?
1996.
Wow.
So,
That's right.
all longevity, a lot of historical knowledge. There was a time, Richard, when we talked about having board terms, and we had it lined up so we have an 18-member board, and we had it lined up where 6 would rotate off
Yeah.
every 6 or 9 years. I can't remember, but we sort of canceled that out because we were going to lose too much organizational knowledge and
Right.
programs and everything else. So we sort of reverted back to no board terms.
So no board term. Boy, 18 members. That's one of the biggest boards I can think of. But that's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, we've our board covers the whole county.
Yeah.
So when we look for board members, we look at geographic, location, if you will, whether it's a business or home, and then we look at the skill set. We're very fortunate to have Kevin as an accountant, Mark as an appraiser. I mean, all did both of those. We have a couple bankers. We do have a couple bankers, I guess. But all of that flows into our conversations when we're talking development. So I think we have a pretty well balanced board, not only geographically for the county, but for the skill sets as well.
All right. So 50 years I've been around. I blew into town in November 1975 from North Carolina, and boy, I can recall pretty well some relatively dark days. I kind of blew into town right after the rogue cop Paul Lawrence affair was kind of when Lawrence was kind of finally being brought to justice. But easy to think of St. Albans those days with some pretty tough times, as in I think double-digit unemployment. I mean, there weren't a ton of jobs around. So, and again, maybe a little background. The state kind of helped get this going. And I know we're going to be showing folks a video in a couple minutes, but I guess there are a couple of early programs. TADC, Target Area Development Corporation, Target Area Action Program. So did the state kind of help get things going in Franklin County and maybe elsewhere too, Tim, with some of these programs, or Mark or Kevin?
I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I got to say that it was some individuals. Merv Kankay probably was the driving force, but at that time he had some really good support. He had Floyd Handy working with him, and other individuals, and they started something. And the results of what they started is what you see today. And I don't want to just say Merv, and I don't want to say just Floyd. There were other individuals, and I don't remember them all because I wasn't even involved with the corporation, but there was a lot of individuals in this county that put everything together to make this thing come to fruition. And but Merv had been on our board for a long time until just before he passed. In the last couple of years, right from the beginning, and great asset, great resource.
Yeah, I think some of the names that I keep seeing pop up are Babby from Swanton.
Leon Babby.
Leon Babby is one name. Roger Luno is another name that pops up. Hathaway, Bill Chaffee for sure. So as we go through old documents and whatnot, those are the names that and I think you got to give the town a lot of credit for establishing the town industrial park. That was key to the growth of bringing jobs to the region. And Swanton had one as well that Governor Dean Davis worked hard to get allocation of money to put the infrastructure in place in the town industrial park and in Swanton. And those were really the catalyst for recruiting business and bringing jobs to the region.
That's right. And since then, we've got some other industrial, Arrowhead in Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia has positioned themselves pre-Act 60. When you had you're responsible for your own tax base and school budget. Georgia was so far ahead of the curve. They had the Georgia Dairy Industrial Park. They had the Arrowhead Industrial Park. Now they have the Morse Industrial Park. If Act 60 never came along, Georgia would be sitting pretty. But now all that gets dispersed statewide. So that groundwork that they laid was huge. But they benefit some, but not to the extent that they would have if Act 60 had not come along.
Right. So Kevin, you had some good predecessors, some key people early on, and it sounds like the momentum's continued pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest assets that the organization has had is the passion that's been driven by the executive directors. If you take Tim, who's a lifelong resident of St. Albans, his family's from here, his siblings are here, and you go back through the ranks of his predecessors. You've got Tim Soul, same thing, longtime Franklin County family, Tom Hungerford, Brian Sussland, and I think Frank Coffey was the first employee that was employed as an executive director for the organization. So, having those people with their connections to our community, with their commitment to our community, it makes it easier for them to help bring businesses in when the people they're talking to see how committed they are and how positive they are about the community and their families living here and what the future holds in store for them.
Right. Well, all the folks you mentioned just in my reporting years now past pretty much, but all the folks were certainly key and always useful sources of information for myself. They're key folks when I think back to my reporting years up here. All those folks were real important people. Tim, I asked you off here in reference to Frank Coffey. Of course, Frank for years has been, I guess, executive director of GBIC, Greater Burlington Industrial Corporation. But again, obviously, he and those folks are after all the jobs they can get for Chittenden County. But I was glad to hear there is some cooperation there. It's not, you do talk to them, you help each other out every once in a while with stuff.
Yeah, for sure. The network within the state there's 12 regional development corporations, there's 12 regional planning commissions, and all 12 of us get together at least once a month. We work together on legislative issues and tracking legislative topics. So we're very close together, and if one RDC cannot accommodate a business for whatever reason, whether it's infrastructure or vacant building or whatever, they're always reaching out to the other RDCs to ask who has availability of those areas. The nice thing with Frank still lives in St. Albans.
Where's former St. Albans Town Selectman, still St. Albans Town resident.
He served as a Commissioner of Economic Development for the state under Howard Dean as well.
Good point.
So he's well versed in economic development, and Frank has probably the key thing that we're banking on is 7 years ago, Frank administered a study for how much available industrial space there is in Chittenden County. And back then, the report said in 7 years, Chittenden County is going to be out of industrial space. And we're at 7 years right now. And we're already seeing in the last year, we've had 3 or 4 Chittenden County businesses either building or soon to build or very interested in building in Franklin County. So we're reaping the benefits of that report. The report seems to be spot on, and you know, Frank was shared that with us from day one, and as businesses come, if he thinks there's a better fit in Franklin County, he'll direct them this way.
That's nice to hear that.
Yep.
Speaking of which, makes me think of Beta Technologies, of course, based at BTV, the airport, and it sounds like taking a serious look at maybe using the old Energizer plant in St. Albans Town for batteries. You're sounding pretty optimistic about that.
Yeah, we've got a conversation today, actually. Today's the 9th of June, and we're still talking about a potential lease for Energizer.
Yeah.
You know, if I was to put a percentage on 90%, it's
really
gonna happen.
That's great.
Yeah, so we're excited about it.
Interesting. FCIDC, the FCIDC folks put together a kind of a documentary on their first 50 years, and thought it'd be fun to play that to our viewing audience. So let's go to that right now, and we'll be back afterwards.
Governor Snelling wanted to have 12 regional development corporations and 12 regional land use planning commissions in the state. So Target Area Development Corporation was founded pretty much as a pilot.
We had a crisis going on. You know, the railroad was shutting down, and so we had high unemployment. People were being laid off, and people wanted to solve problems.
Governor Snelling's focus was to build industrial parks to bring truck traffic and worker traffic in and out.
And so you're taking that money and you're going to put it into infrastructure programs, industrial parks, and building roads to those parks and getting water and electric into those areas. Now, first up was a park that we had in St. Albans Town.
There was an industrial park in Georgia, and there was also one in St. Albans City on Lemnot Drive. So it was our job, number one, that we kept who we had, and number two, to try to recruit new industry to the area to create those types of jobs.
In 1982, we finalized our name to Franklin County Industrial Development Corp.
One of the features of Franklin County that I think drew a lot of industry to this area was our workforce.
We've been very fortunate to have a workforce that generated out of Franklin County, where we feel like there's a work ethic maybe above and beyond where we find elsewhere.
You know, I just see the grit of our citizens, just knowing that a job needs to be done well, just understanding that they have to work hard and they have to earn what they get.
We are basically an agricultural community.
Franklin County is the largest dairy county in Vermont, as well as in all of New England. The ability to continue to support agriculture with dairy processing, other food processing, as well as just manufacturing in general, does continue to support this area.
Workforce is deep in the roots of the trades and the agriculture industries, and those skills are very transferable into our biggest industry now, which is manufacturing.
We've got land, we have water and sewer infrastructure, we have a very qualified workforce. We're close to a major transportation artery, Interstate 89. We're close to Montreal. So you put all those together, plus the environment, Lake Champlain, recreation facilities that we have, and the quality schools that we have, I think it makes Franklin County a very attractive place for businesses.
You're comparing this community with a number of other communities. If you're not ready, they're not really waiting till you're ready. So you have to be prepared. Sometimes that means putting a lot of money in an industrial park and waiting for a company to show up as you're recruiting them, but you have to be prepared.
So that was always been the focus, and really staying in tune with the manufacturers in the region and assisting them where we could. Now we're looking at a little bit different model.
You know, it's really just trying to help these communities that are out there have a viable community. You know, every town needs something, and a lot of them really didn't see our corporation as a source for that help. And as time's gone on, they've realized that, yes, indeed, we can help them.
You know, workforce development, economic development now involves making sure we have the child care facilities for the parents to be able to go to work and feel safe and have quality care. Making sure that the marginalized people in our community that need additional support really get the training they need.
A lot of people are making career changes or life changes because of the pandemic, and some of that focuses on starting their own business. So we're gonna do some initiatives focused on entrepreneurship and try to assist where we can. The ultimate goal for us would be to take some of that entrepreneurship and have it grow into large value-added manufacturing. Vermont Precision Tools is one, which started here in the county with a 3-person group, and now they're at 250 employees.
I've found myself in many situations where I can recommend FCIDC. They have advocated for business. They engage with business. They understand what we do, what our challenges are, and they are genuine in helping to address those.
That's the important part of industrial development. It's not just, hey, let's bring a company and snap a finger. It doesn't happen.
It's really been part of the measure of the success that we certainly have had. And Tim makes an effort to really be involved and engaged with the municipalities, various agencies, chambers of commerce, who are here really to kind of support, the economic activity here and to grow it for Franklin County.
A director can be very good, but if he doesn't have a supportive board behind him, he's not going to get much accomplished. And I think that's the key here. All of the board members on Tim's board for the past 30 some odd years, they've all been excellent. They all freely donate their time, and they all have the best interests of Franklin County at heart.
You have to look forward. We're going to be here 10 years from now. We just got to make sure that we have the team together to carry on.
And we're back, folks. Richard Cobrathwaite, Northwest Access TV. Again, looking back over 50 years of the Franklin County Industrial Development Corporation with its board chair, Mark LaRoe, executive director, Tim Smith, and vice chair of the board, Kevin Manahan. Talking about trying to get jobs up here. Plattsburgh, New York, is that always kind of the biggest competition for jobs around here, Tim, or anybody? Or certainly is Plattsburgh kind of one of the main competitors for jobs as you're trying to get, say, new jobs up here, or not necessarily?
No, I think it is, Richard. I think the difference, and Plattsburgh is, I think, struggling in some ways at finding the human capital, just like everyone else is, trying to find the people to fill jobs. So pre-pandemic, they sort of had maximized their workforce population to fill jobs, and I think they will continue, just like everyone else, will continue to struggle on that. What Plattsburgh had going for it was when the Air Force Base closed, there was a lot of...
talk about a huge hit. I remember the day as well.
Yeah,
in fact, it was kind of ironic, as I recall, the base closure, or I guess the Defense Department, is my vague memory, wanted to keep Plattsburgh and maybe even add to it, but what was it, the base closure committee? That was one of the ones on its hit list, and they did get hit, but it seems like DOD wanted to keep it anyway. It didn't happen.
Yeah, so they had a glut of buildings, right? They had empty buildings once the airbase moved out, and that's sort of been their golden nugget, if you will. They've been able to attract because of space. I mean, we just lost a company that was looking to locate in the Energizer building, but there was no space, and they couldn't wait any longer, so they went across the lake, and so it's proven to be. I think there's a good balance. What we share with people is if someone's going to look at New York State, more often than not, they're going to get a better incentive package. And if it's a large corporation, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the incentive package. Yeah. If it's a smaller, if it's a privately owned sole proprietor or partnership, we usually have a pretty good shot at them based on quality of life, education, and other activities such as quality of workforce and that. So we're probably never, or very rarely will we ever get a large corporate entity like Energizer was back in the 1950s. But where we benefit is taking those smaller businesses and having them grow into larger businesses over time. Vermont Precision Tools is a prime example. Ray's Tubing and Die is another great example. So, and there's a lot of those small operations that are scattered around the county.
Right. If we just show the video, let's talk about the future of it. I guess you've been spending some time, Mark, on kind of looking to the future of FCIDC, kind of a bit of a strategic plan, or you tell me.
Well, we're working on the strategic plan, but I got to say that there have been a lot of people on our board that have put in a lot more time than I personally have. But they've come up with some really good things. The things I would like to say is we are looking at more economic development maybe than industrial development going forward, because everything is interrelated. Housing, daycare, I mean,
Transportation.
Education. And so we're looking to try to see how we can help that. Recently, we brought on some new board members. And to give you an example, we have brought in some people that are familiar with housing, transportation, diversified ag, because all of these things are important to Franklin County. So over the years, and especially in the last 2 or 3 years under Tim's leadership, we have been looking at opportunities that aren't particularly associated with industry, but it's important to industry. It's important to any business coming into this area that they have affordable housing, education, daycare, and other things too, like diversified ag. Diversified ag is something that appears to be really growing, you know, instead of just sending your milk to the co-op, which is now DFA, you have an opportunity to maybe do something else with that product. You know, we have cheese manufacturers, we have a lot of things that are going on, and we try to help them on the small scale. A little bit of money sometimes can go a long way.
You optimistic about the future, Kevin? Any thoughts here?
I'm very optimistic about the future, especially I think from our perspective in Franklin County. You know, dealing with business people on a regular basis for decades. You know, we've been a little bit fortunate that I don't think we ever hit the high of the highs, but we're also never hitting the low of the lows, you know, in Vermont. And then when we look at Vermont, Franklin County has really prospered compared to a lot of the state. You know, we've got
manufacturing jobs. I mean, I think some people think all manufacturing jobs are gone. Franklin County's done pretty well holding on to some significant manufacturing jobs.
Yeah, the manufacturing jobs, the agricultural industry, as Mark mentioned, you know, when you look at the maple industry around here,
booming.
You know, all the major maple equipment manufacturers have a presence in Franklin County. So I'm feeling very optimistic about the future of Franklin County. You know, we've got some, not only the manufacturing, but when you look at, you know, the INS center and the number of, you know, very high quality, low impact jobs that are there. You know, we've been very fortunate, and I think our future, I think we're positioned such that we've still got some opportunities for growth. And, you know, one of the things through our strategic plan that we've come to realize, or we've realized but maybe have formalized it a little bit, is that, you know, we have a fairly limited staff at FCIDC, and we're not going to be able to do, you know, be the solution for everybody, but we can act as a facilitator and a collaborator with a lot of other organizations that have the same objectives in mind as we do for economic development and increasing the quality of life for our employees in Franklin County. So I think it's a matter of targeting, you know, where we can best use our resources and how we can align our expertise with other organizations to, provide that benefit to the community.
All right. Tim, another key thing, which nothing I have to tell you guys about, obviously, but I think a lot of people think, gee, where are the new jobs, or where are they going to get the new jobs? But obviously, a key part of your job is keeping what's here. Nice to get some new jobs sometimes, but obviously, probably a lot more important is holding on to what's here, and there's a lot here.
No doubt. Just to take off on that and what Kevin shared earlier, when you talk about we don't hit the lows of the lows during the recession of 2008, and we sort of chuckle at this a little bit in that it's not something you want to hang your hat on, but we actually had the lowest job loss of any county in the state. We still lost jobs, but the impact was much less than many other areas. As far as the pandemic goes, from the city perspective or the town, there was very few delinquencies in tax bills and water bills. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that most of our manufacturing was deemed essential. They were able to keep their doors open and continue to pay people. So that, we have a higher percentage of manufacturing jobs than any other, and except for maybe Chittenden County, but any other county in the state. So that, that goes directly to Kevin's point that we position ourselves with the diversity of government jobs, healthcare, education, manufacturing, dairy, retail. So we've been very successful in diversifying. And to Mark's point earlier, it's important to share that success. It's not just FCIDC. That success comes from all of the select boards that are in place throughout the county that we work with. They understand the value of a good job, and they understand what that impact is for the county. And so all of our select boards are supportive of, building infrastructure, recruiting new business, workforce development. So we're very fortunate, and I just leave it, and people have heard me say it 100 times, and that is, there's hundreds and hundreds of counties around the country, rural counties, that would trade places with us in a heartbeat.
And Tim, I'd like you to just comment a little bit on some of the things that we're looking at and that are important. Are the number of people that have been commuting to Chittenden County. We need to get the jobs in Franklin County so they don't have to make that drive. And Tim, I think a little bit about those numbers, and I think it's important to share that with the audience.
I definitely hear these numbers, and that's definitely worth mentioning. What, 10,000 folks about, Tim, heading to mostly Chittenden County?
Most current numbers I've seen is 10.5 getting on the interstate, heading to points south, whether it's Chittenden County, Washington County, Lamoille County, whatever the case is. And our total workforce, available workforce, is about 25,500. So just about 40% of our workforce is leaving the county. And when we talk to companies like Beta and they ask what's the workforce like, I think the stars are aligning for us a little bit, in the sense that gas is at $5.10, diesel's at $6.10. I think the impact on family, and just throw in inflation in general, I think the impact on families or individuals traveling to Burlington is going to be significant. And my hope is they're going to start looking closer to home for that new job that's going to save them on gas money, allow them time to be more active in the community. It's all of that stuff.
Have you noticed that? How you're picking up a little bit of that? You think that certainly sounds like a natural thing that could happen.
I've just sort of on the peripheral. I mean, we hear comments that, I got tired of driving, I'm looking for a change, So I don't know what the actual numbers are. I do know that our out migration of individuals is about 10,500. Our in migration has grown, partly due to Milan and other jobs, but it's in migration is 4,500.
Oh, really? Okay.
So the net loss is about 6,000 jobs. But that's what we're pitching when we talk about to new companies. There's a new company that's purchasing, moving from Milton and relocating in Swanton and wanting a Milan plants that was shut down last year. And they're optimistic based on those numbers that they'll be able to find the workforce they need.
Another example of a business that started off relatively small and has grown very nicely is the Railroad Dispatch Center. And they were very close to relocating to Chittenden County,
Really?
which would have had a big impact on their current workforce as far as, increased commute time and distance for most of their employees. And, we were fortunate enough with the help of a lot of different individuals and organizations to provide a package for them to change their decision, and they're, as you probably know, relocating now to the old Fonda site, and that's going to be continue to be a big asset for our community and offer other opportunities on that site as that site's developed.
How many employees roughly, Kevin?
Pushing 70.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think around 80 in that area.
70,
Yeah.
80. Starting
Interesting.
pay is $50,000.
Really? And
you
they're
know,
they're dispatching all over the country,
I
correct?
think they have
I think they're even up into Canada.
Really?
about 100 short line railroads.
Really?
So for people listening, it's sort of like a air traffic controller for trains,
Interesting.
and not just at one airport, but
Wow.
nationwide. Starting pay is $50,000.
Wow.
Good railroad benefits. So it's really proven. To Kevin's point, I mean, it goes unknown. You would never know they're there,
Yeah.
but it sort of gives us another diversification, right? It's technology, and so we're excited to. The city's worked hard with them to get them into the Fonda site.
And that work is underway as we speak,
Yeah, I
correct?
hope to be in
Oh,
later 2023.
wow. Yeah, no, this sounds like very good jobs. With the infant formula shortage getting a huge story for weeks now, was Perigo, of course, comes to mind in Georgia. Of course, I never hear them mentioned in the huge national story, but, were they able to kind of kick up production and stuff? They're still doing their thing big time, I guess.
Actually,
huh?
I think the answer is no. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had a brief conversation on that.
I know they've been looking. I see those folks looking for workers like everybody else.
And that's exactly the case, right?
Yeah.
I did happen to catch something on the news that had the CEOs from 4 companies, and the Perigo individual
Oh,
was
yeah.
included in that.
Huh.
They were looking at a major expansion pre-COVID. They cleared their area. They did a lot of permitting, but they put it on hold because of the cost increase. They were looking. Initial costs were at $310 million expansion. And I heard that doubled, either 50% up, between 50% and 100% increase from what the original estimates were. So I heard 450, I heard 610, which is, so they put it on hold. I don't want to second guess, but maybe they had hoped they'd gone forward based on the situation that we're in as a nation. But I don't think their production is pumped up at all. Because of lack of employees.
Yeah. Boy, talk about a huge issue for just about everybody out there. I'm sure we could talk labor shortage forever, but boy, your point about just trying to get some of the, folk commuters heading out of Franklin County every day, that sounds like, boy, maybe the easiest or the best bet to somehow address that critical labor shortage. Is it to the point where I can think of one company in eastern Franklin County that sounded like they were shaky even staying here if they couldn't find more employees, or a few companies around here in just pretty critical shape on that front, Tim?
Yeah. To a company, they're all looking.
Yeah.
The ironic point is I can list off probably 3 or 4 companies that would expand if they could find the help.
Wow.
And not just we're talking. We've been dealing with the board's been dealing with Leader Evaporator. We had a call with Leader the other day, and they said we'd hire 8 people today if we could, of which 5 would be welders.
Wow.
And a welder gets paid well.
Wow.
So they're going into the schools. They're working with the tech centers and they will train. They will, the opportunities now for anyone looking to get in the workforce are huge. You look at the increase in wages, benefits, flexibility that companies are willing to offer. Training, you could really do well coming out of high school if you chose to.
And you think, I know we've certainly talked about that before, you think the high school is doing a better job just trying to say, hey kids, want to go to college, fine, but if you don't want to go to college,
I think
great opportunities.
We're making headway in that. I think there's still quite a bit more the schools can be doing.
Yeah.
But we have made headway that we're not pushing every kid to college. If there's other opportunities that are being shared with them, there's more panel discussions happening within the schools, trying to educate the kids about what the opportunities are.
Yeah.
Unlike in the past, say 5-10 years down the road, I don't know that if an individual chose to not to go to college, that they would not know what opportunities are out there. I think that's changed significantly now.
Mark, you get the sense that situation sounding better. The high school is giving more focus to the non-college kids, maybe.
I want to just say that Tim kind of hit it on the head when he said, there's more work to do. Historically, high schools have really worked to try to put people into a college environment. I mean, when guidance was guidance, you know, it was to get you what you needed to go to college. I think they're realizing now that the trades are really I mean, the pay that you get is not
Chicken feed.
it's not chicken feed.
Right, just
You
need to
know,
find
and
some
the
of
thing,
these.
Right.
the thing that I look at all the time is I deal with people all the time in my business and everything, and I talk to plumbers, I talk to electricians. In both of those trade groups, the average age of licensed plumbers and electricians are in their 50s.
I would have guessed 50s to about 60, yeah.
You know,
Easy to
so
believe.
there's a lot of opportunity for people, and they make up pretty good money, and they come out of, you know, after an apprenticeship without the overhead of secondary education.
Yeah.
But I don't think people understand that type of situation. And we are going to be in a real problem if we don't start recruiting young people in the trades right across the board.
Kevin, you think there's some progress? Do you think we're making maybe a little bit of progress on that front?
Yeah, I do. I think there's a lot of progress that's been made. You know, I talk to my children, my nieces, my nephews. You know, they and their friends, a lot of them have opted to go into the trade sector. And
Really?
as Mark said, you know, the opportunities are limitless. You know, you can run your own business. It's not just a matter of performing the task, but, you know, I think there is a shortage of employees in that area, a shortage of tradesmen, and you know, that shortage goes across the board, obviously, you know, from healthcare to manufacturing to, you know, the trades as well, but absolutely a big opportunity.
Maple came up a while ago, and I like statistics, and this is one I've thrown out over the years, I hope reasonably accurately, but I always heard that maple production in Vermont used to be about 1/3 of the country. In fact, it's now about 50% of the country's maple syrup comes out of Vermont. But I would always hear about 1/3 of Vermont's production was Franklin County. If that's the case, and heard that from some folks who seem to know, I think Danny Brandon would mention that to me, but boy, if that's the case, that's one pretty impressive stat. Then we're talking double digits, maybe, I don't know, roughly 15% of the country's maple syrup coming out of this county. That's a stat that just kind of blows my mind. I mean, 15% maybe of the country's maple syrup out of Franklin County, Vermont. If the 1/3 to 1/3 is roughly accurate. But
I think if anything, that may be conservative.
maybe I'm even low. Maybe
and I
it's
think
even
that
20%.
That's why we've got Dominion and Grimm, Lapierre, CDL, Leader, and you know all the maple manufacturers located here because of that.
That's a pretty impressive stat. Tim, boy, dairy farming, number of dairy farms, are we under 800 in Vermont now? It's just, I think it's going down. But milk production out of Franklin County, I think, is still relatively stable. Milk prices have finally come up, but of course, cost of production, God knows where that's gone these days.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate to have Leon Berthium on our board
Right.
for 25 years.
Many
or however
years.
long it's been, and Leon as the CEO of the co-op before it sold to DFA,
Right.
Leon would always educate us about where the opportunities are,
Yeah.
and times have changed in the sense that cows have diminished the number of cows,
Right.
yet per cow production is way up based on not necessarily technology, but just
Management.
and education of the herd and all
Yeah.
that. So I think the production is still very close to where it was.
Yeah, I think so.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
It's great to see the milk price up. I think I just saw it was at 25 something.
Yeah, I think so. Unfortunately, cost of production is probably
Right.
maybe that, if not a little more. But no, good to see milk prices finally coming up.
Considering what 3 years ago it was at
Right.
$14 or
Yeah.
whatever, it's $15, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So it's and that makes a huge difference. A lot of people don't realize that the amount of infrastructure. I think Leon shared that for us to maintain, I think we have 129,000 cows in Vermont now.
Yeah.
But for us to maintain that infrastructure, which is your equipment dealers, your feed dealers, your car dealers, all that, we need to be at 145,000 cows, or you're going to start losing some of the so-called infrastructure, if you will. And then when we've dropped off, so people may have seen equipment dealers go out of business or consolidate, or so that's where we think. And I know they're doing a lot with looking at alternative markets as well.
It wasn't that long ago when most of the dairy farmers were concerned about survival. But the pendulum has swung a little bit, and now they're more focused on planning and growth and being efficient. And it's just it's a really fickle economy.
Yeah.
So.
Mark, hard to picture of Franklin County. I mean, dairy's been such a huge part. Again, we're still talking the top ag county in New England.
Right.
So dairy still a big part of the economy around here, despite all the problems with dairy farmers.
Well, yes, it definitely is. I mean, we've lost farmers. I know we were talking just a minute ago about how many farms left in Vermont. I heard something on VPR the other day, and they said the number was around 540 farms,
maybe way
which is half of what it was, maybe 10 years ago. But the number of cows is maintained fairly relatively stable. I mean, dairy to Franklin County is important. It's probably our largest industry when you take all those farms that are here and the production that they do in the county. And it's all those farmers doing what they can to keep their heads above board. And it's been a challenge for years. I hope it gets better. You said 25. I heard today on NPR it's up to maybe 26. But fuel is up, fertilizer costs is up, seed costs is up, employment is up, everything else is up. So does that still make it so that you can, like Kevin was saying, whether you can keep your head above water?
Unless you're a descendant of a farmer who buys into or is gifted into or grows into an existing operation.
That doesn't have a huge debt load.
Right. It's very, very rare to see someone come in off the street and start a farming operation from scratch. It's almost impossible. And, it's really a quality of life issue that some people appreciate, but
the stat that Leon shared also with us was when I started, so about 2001, but 2002, the St. Albans Co-op had 606 member farmers, and now they're below 350. So 20 years later,
it's about half or so.
About half.
Yeah, it's about what I would have guessed. Right. In my early years up here, again, I go back to mid-70s. Seems like just about all the new jobs at that point were Quebec companies. Just establishing satellite operations on this side of the border, which begs my question: just the border issues of pandemic, has that just made life a lot tougher with just kind of north of the border, kind of being just so far away, even though it's a few miles away?
Yeah, I think the companies, the Barry Callebaut of the world that transport chocolate back and forth to St. Hyacinth, Peerless Clothing, some of those, they were still able to maneuver and transport their goods back and forth without a big issue. Where we've seen the pandemic impact is that we just haven't received many calls, although that has picked up substantially over the last 6 months. But just to take off on a point Kevin made is that we're a very small staff, so we really don't go out and we don't go to trade shows, we don't go out recruiting, we just don't have that, we don't have the income for it, and we just don't have the manpower for it.
Speaking of the small staff, we're talking two folks, or am I off, Tim?
Two full-time and one part-time.
Okay, wow, that's a small staff.
And then an administrative assistant.
Okay.
So four people total, which amounts to 3.5 individuals. But so no one was calling during the pandemic. No one could come down and look at space. They could.
Right.
So, but now I think things are starting to change. I think we'll see, and there's a lot of things happening relative to the I-30 or I-35, right? The new interstate coming down to Highgate.
Right, I was up there the other day and on the old section. In fact, I did ask the guy at the border when I came back through, how soon are we talking the last, I guess, section of interstate like highway to get it close to the Highgate Springs? Where he kind of laughed at me and said, you know what I've been hearing about that, but 2 years, is that what year?
2025.
2025.
Sort of what I'm hearing.
It looks like there's some progress being made on it right now. There is construction going on there.
Yeah, you can kind of see when you get up on the new section, you can kind of see a little bit of work down to the left. Boy, if you could give me the Montreal or the Vermont, or rather, getting to Montreal by 2025, I'd sign on the dotted line if we could get the train back to Montreal. But that's more of a personal issue. So the border situation, obviously, a lot better these days. But do you make efforts to talk to folks north of the border and say, hey, we're not far away, or are you busy enough with just kind of what doing what you're doing?
Yeah, it's so expansive. Where do you begin? That's one of the questions. One thing we did do pre-COVID was we have built relationships with individuals in Cowansville and St. John, and we put together a map which focused just on our region. It doesn't go down as far as Burlington. It doesn't go as far north as Montreal. It's more of that border region, half hour in each direction, and try to educate people about what the opportunities are and try to draw from those populations moving back and forth.
Didn't the Chamber, Franklin County Regional Chamber of Commerce, weren't they kind of doing something like that? Or
they were one of the partners involved with the project.
Interesting. So north of the border, Mark, is that always a hope that there'll be some activity coming south from north of the border?
We've been very fortunate in Franklin County to attract the people that you talk about satellite, but a lot of them have really made significant investments. I mean, you look at Peerless Clothing. Tim can tell you how large that warehouse is, but it's big. It's the biggest single warehouse that we have in Franklin County. And he mentioned Barry Callebaut, and there were other properties, and I don't want to exclude anybody, but some of them you don't know the affiliation right out of the gate. But Peerless has been a really valuable asset to Franklin County Industrial Development and employment in the area.
Peerless still has a presence at the old Energizer plant too, correct?
Yeah. Their supply chain still hasn't rebounded like they hope. They are looking at their numbers. They expect to get a bump in what they're getting from their supply chain, but that they're still waiting to. And what they do get in, it goes out just as quickly. So people are still buying suits and doing all that. Mark talked about Canadian companies. There was one we recruited called Vermont Transformer. There was Vermont Transformer, great company making electrical transformers for special projects. And we had them for about 2 years. growing company, had about 25 jobs, just so wonderful to work with. And they ended up selling to a New Jersey company who moved them to Mexico.
To Mexico.
So I always think about how much transition there is and how many companies have come and gone since I've been in this for 22 years. I mean, Energizer is a good example, but we've always managed to fare well. Timing was perfect, if you want to think of it that way. When Energizer went out, Mylan was then adding 150 jobs. So you had that transition. I know some of the Energizer folks were picked up by Vermont Precision Tools. It's not like there was no alternatives for those people. I know the Rail Dispatch hired a number of those individuals who may have got laid off. So we're fortunate, and once again, it's the diversity that allows us to be successful.
Boy, Kevin, all you folks, big project looming at the Franklin County State Airport in Highgate. That sounds like, I would think, one of the maybe bigger things on your future's agenda.
I think so. That's on the plate for sure. The infrastructure upgrade there,
Yeah.
and I guess one of the negatives from that is looks like it's going to be displacing the home of the Franklin County Field Days, which has been a big part of our local community for many years. So that's just one of many projects that we're involved with.
Yeah. And again, down the road, Tim, but that sounds like that could be a pretty big thing around here. Just the Highgate,
For sure. You've got it's sort of a public-private partnership. Jim Harrison owns land that adjacent that he wants to turn into an industrial park with having a airport focus, trying to lure companies that can benefit from being close to the airport.
And again, the airport expansion, even on its own, underway, I guess, extending the airport.
Exactly.
Extending the runway.
Right.
Extend the runway to 4,005 feet. I'm not sure why the 5, but
Is that right? 4,005.
5, yeah. So they're that two. A lot of times they were getting blended into the same project, but they're two totally different projects.
Yeah.
The airport the runway expansion, and then the running of water and sewer up to the airport.
Which Highgate voters approved a while back.
Highgate approved, yeah.
Interesting.
So just to touch, I don't know.
Jump into anything we haven't talked about. We have about 6 minutes left.
I want to go back to what Mark said about we're doing more community development than industrial development.
Yeah.
And we've invested in a lot of areas. We invested in, and when I say invest, we're not the lead by any means, but we share some dollars that can be a catalyst for the program. We call it a grant if you want, but we gave funding to Highgate in the amount of $10,000 to help do education for the bond vote. Do drawings, hire engineers to share the information. We have $10,000 that we've invested up in Bakersfield to hopefully turn the Brigham Academy into some housing project. So once again, we fronted money to allow for engineers to do some site plans and whatnot, so that they could then go to the state for a planning grant.
Project in downtown Enosburg Falls, does that kind of fit in here too?
Yeah, we're hoping to close on that tomorrow. So purchasing a downtown block, renovating, bringing office jobs to the downtown Enosburg, maintaining housing up above. We also are investing $10,000 a year for 2 years into the Richford town administrator. So Richford approved to hire a town administrator. We're going to help offset that cost for 2 years. I think having a town administrator in Richford will really pull a lot of initiatives together and try to get them head in the right direction.
Interesting.
And we had another $15,000 invested in Swanton for the Ace Memorial Project and pay for some engineering and moving costs. So we've been very active in the downtown, and it goes to Mark's point that all runs true when you talk about quality of life, strong downtowns. People can go places, people go out and eat, shop, recreate. So, and then just recreate, I'll just share. We're really looking forward to the completion of the Memorial Valley Rail Trail.
That's right, which should be done by later into summer or fall. Should be done by the end of this year.
A lot of work going on up in Fairfield now as you drive through Fairfield. And
Yeah, that's tremendous. It'll be what the longest rail trail in New England, I believe. What, about 93 miles, Swanton
Right.
to St. John?
Yep.
Right, that's
Intersecting,
great.
intersecting in Sheldon.
Wow. You just touched on some eastern Franklin County. Certainly, the more obvious success with FCIDC has been western Franklin County, St. Albans, Swanton, Georgia, but eastern Franklin County obviously getting some attention, Kevin, just kind of a little tougher to do stuff, eastern part of the county.
Well, it is a little bit tougher just because of the population and the workforce, I think, but, you know, we've really tried to be cognizant of that and, again, help facilitate and coordinate and, you know, contribute where we can to make sure that everybody's getting their fair share.
Yeah. It's down to about 3 minutes. Anything you want to quickly jump into that we haven't touched on, gentlemen?
I did, quickly, for the corridor you referred to, I think part of
Yeah.
that success is due to Vermont Natural Gas.
Okay, that crossed my mind before.
They got, a line got run to Enosburg,
Right,
which has been huge savings for
Right.
Enosburg, for Franklin Foods.
right.
So Vermont Gas has been a real catalyst for us in this corridor to keep costs down. I just had a conversation with a former board member, Steve Plouffe, today, and people are worried about heating oil and what that's going to cost.
Right.
Natural gas may go up a little, but not, it doesn't have that fluctuation that heating oil and gasoline will have.
Any plans, so I know it got into Enosburg Falls, any plans to get beyond Enosburg, you know, over that way?
They bring it, right now it goes to the Hannaford
Okay,
shopping plaza, but
Okay.
if there was a demand in the Enosburg Industrial Park, Vermont Gas has committed to, that they would run
Yeah.
a line to assist in that park.
well, it's funny, the cheese plant in Enosburg doesn't seem to get a lot of attention, but that's been a pretty solid plant for a while.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
100 employees
Really,
in rural Vermont, good paying, benefits, all that, so.
yeah. Down to a minute and a half or so, Mark, just some comments.
Well, I just
Long
want
tenure
to.
with FCIDC, but you've got
Well, I
lots to show
just
for
want
it.
to say that we recently got involved trying to ensure that we have a welcome center north of the Swanton exit
Right.
for the southbound. And we're actively working on that. That will probably be something that would be beneficial to not only Franklin County, but Grand Isle County before they get all the way down to Chittenden County. So that's a project that's in the works. We're hoping to pull that thing together in the future. But at this time, it's in its infancy.
Yeah. Kevin, some final comments?
No, I guess one of the joys that I've seen working with FCIDC is just the collaboration with people, the lack of political snarling, if you will. You know, people have been very cooperative, whether it's communities working together, different organizations. There's really a non-competitive, non-political atmosphere that I think the success speaks for itself. So.
Tim, you're the key guy here, I guess. You've had some very worthy predecessors, but sounds like it's been a good solid 50 years, and I'm sure you're looking forward to a lot more success.
Yeah, no doubt, Richard. The board is huge, plays a big part in that. Our select boards play a big part in that. Just the general attitude of our citizens. They understand the value of a good job and what that means to the whole county.
Hey, thanks very much to Tim Smith, the Executive Director of Franklin County Industrial Development Corp., Mark LaRoe, the Board Chair, Kevin Manhan, the Board Vice Chair. Thanks a lot, folks. Good luck in the future. Good job in the past. Thanks to producer Roger Lindelof. I'm Richard Coberthwaite. See you next time on Northwest Access TV. See ya.